welcome to my channel, and it's July, so I thought I would go through my top 5 books of the year so far. So these are just the books that I've read this year that really stand out. Not all of them have been published in 2018, just because I do sometimes get a bit behind on my reading. So some of these were from last year, but a few of them are from this year. So let's just get straight on in, because I know I will probably start rambling. The first book that I really have to mention is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I read this on New Year's Day and I still think it's the standout read of this year. Nothing has beaten it so far. I just love this so much. It's hard to talk about it without going on and on just because it's so amazing. But The Hate You Give follows Star, who has a best friend who is shot by the police even though he's done nothing wrong, and it basically follows on from there, and it's kind of how the Black Lives Matter movement started. And I just think it's such a really, really important book for everyone to read, and especially with what's going on in America. I think people should read this because Angie Thomas literally just lays it all out. She does not hold back, she puts it all in there, and parts of it had me quite shook as to how people are treated in America. And yeah, I just really think everyone should give this a read. Next mention is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I actually listened to the audiobook of this, and the audiobook was amazing. This book follows Lale, who was the real life tattooist of Auschwitz, and it follows him from when he came to the concentration camp all the way through his journey in the camp, and then it stops after the war has ended, and it follows up as to where his life is now. And he's literally telling Heather about his life because his wife has now died, and he wants people to know what really went on in the concentration camps. Now, I've read a lot of stories about concentration camps. None of them I think have been based on anyone. I think they're just general stories, but the fact that I knew this was based on someone real and everybody in the story are real people, it kind of made it 100% worse than any other book I read. I was totally emotionally invested in this book. When I was listening to it on the way to work, I would sometimes be crying, or at least trying not to cry, because it's just that emotional, and Richard Armitage, who narrated this book, does an amazing job. Also, it's one of the few books where I read to the end the author's acknowledgements, and there's a kind of what happened to the characters. Some of them were killed, some of them were arrested, and some of them thankfully are living happily ever after. So this is one book, especially someone who loves history, that I think people should read, and it's so hard hitting. The way Heather Morris describes stuff is just like, oh my god. So yeah, I totally recommend this book. Another great book was The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. So I read B.A. Paris's debut novel, Behind Closed Doors, last year, and then this is her second novel, and I loved it. There's just so much suspense. There were parts of this where things were happening and she was thinking someone was in the house, where I literally had to get up and check my door was locked because I was getting so invested in this book. I mean, it's just so amazing. It follows a young woman who has moved to the country, and she goes down this country lane, she sees the car, and she doesn't stop. She thinks, I'm not going to stop in this weather because it might be someone trying to hijack my car. But then the day after, it turns out that there was a dead body in that car and a woman had been horrifically murdered. So she's trying to deal with the guilt. She's also trying to deal with the fact that she might be getting early dementia, which is what her mother had. So she's trying to deal with all this. And the ending, when I think back on it, I should have expected it, but I did not expect it at all. I'm quite upset with myself. But that was just what shows what this book does. It kind of makes you rethink. You're in the position of the woman, and I did not expect the ending. It was amazing how everything wraps up together. I loved it, and I can't wait to read her third novel, which I have, which I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Bring Me Back or something like that. B.A. Paris is fastly becoming my favourite thriller author because, God almighty, she can just get you and you are hooked. The next one is another historic novel, and that's A Twist in Time by Julian McLuhan. This is the sequel to A Murder in Time, which I read last year and I loved it. This is about Kendar, who's an FBI agent, who gets sent back in time to England. I believe, is it the 1800s? I can't remember. But she gets sent back in time and she has to solve a murder, and In Twisting Time, she's been in this century for a few months now. She's still not getting used to it. She's still got it in her head that she's going to be able to go home. But then one of her friends that she has made is accused of murder, and she helps find out what has really gone on. And I love it. I just love Kendall. You might have heard me in previous videos just how much I love her. The way she deals with the men in this century is amazing, because obviously women as well, they kind of look down on her because she acts weird, because women in this century don't expect another woman to be walking around without a chaperone. Men are a bit confused with her short hair because she's got a bob, it's not long, and the way she deals with it, and especially with her solving a murder, I think she's amazing, and she's one of my favourite characters. And A Court in Time has been released, but for some reason my pre-order from Waterstones hasn't been shipped, so I am going to have to get them emailed and maybe order it elsewhere, because I am really wanting the third novel. The last book in this video is one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I read it, I loved it, and that is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. So this is the sequel to Caraval. And oh my god, this is such a good sequel. Caraval was based on Scarlett's point of view, whereas this follows Teller, Scarlett's sister. And this follows on, I think it might be a few months from Caraval, and they are at another Caraval. And this one is based in the world's capital, and so you get to see more of this world that Stephanie Garber beautifully builds. You get to see more of the characters, especially Teller, because you didn't really see much of Teller in Caraval because she had been kidnapped. And you also get to see more about the history. You see these fates come in, and they are like gods and goddesses from the past, and you learn more about Scarlett and Teller's mother as well, because Teller is wanting to find out more about her disappearance and why she might have disappeared. I loved it, and it ends on such a good cliffhanger as well. The finale is hopefully out next year, and I know we get to see it from the point of view of both sisters. I cannot wait, and it'll be a shame when this series ends, because this is such a good YA fantasy novel. So those are the top 5 books of the year so far. I would like to know what you think. Personally, what are your favourite books of the year so far? If you want to comment down below, and my social media links are also below. And finally, I will see you later with a new video. Bye!